Well, a very good morning to you and welcome yet to another interesting episode of the Candid Talk. My name, as usual, is Evans Okinyi. Now, joining me to understand and demystify the Kenyan politics is none other than Professor Herman Manyora, who is actually a political commentator and education expert and actual advisor in this country. Prof, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Evans. Evans. How did you spell? How did you get
No,
it?
it's Evans with the CE.
Yeah, okay.
I actually don't know how that came to be, but that's what I found.
A little bit illiterate at the lower level.
That's what I found in my birth certificate. Anyway,
Yes.
your prof, you've got a number of titles. I think maybe just comparable to Professor George Magoa.
No, Magoa is a serious professor. Me, I'm not. I saw him bending very hard. I was thinking he will be retained. If bending would make you get retained, he should have been retained. Anyway, yes. You know, that's my boss, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Prof, you look smart today.
Thank you.
Well, Prof, before we begin the conversation, kindly let's tell us something about Let's Talk Love, the new channel that you began yesterday.
Yeah, the new channel of Let's Talk Love is about identifying those things that may separate or strain families, relationship in families, man and wife, man and children. We are looking, for example, currently we are running a series of 2 or 3 episodes of a man who was married for 13 years without a child. So look at barrenness now. How does it affect? What can other people learn from that conversation? So we have brought a man. We are already running part 1. Then we talk about other things like children. If you marry a woman who has children that are not yours, how does that affect your relationships? You know, mothers-in-law, the famous mother-in-law. There are many things that bring challenges into a marriage. We want to be talking about them. I'll be talking about them. And I'll be bringing people with the testimony, really life stories, human interest stories, as a way of trying to help Kenyans have a conversation. If you have a problem, you can learn that you are not the only one. And you can learn from how others managed it, and so on and so forth.
Make sure you subscribe to the Let's Talk Love KE channel, and of course our main channel here at Herman Manyora. Well, Prof, let's get straight into today's conversation. And of course, Kenyans have been waiting to hear the president name his cabinet. And actually, that took place the other day.
Yes.
And this is a conversation that, an activity that has elicited mixed reactions from various Kenyans, people from each and every corner, talking about the kind of people who've been nominated or who seek positions at that level. Now, Prof, I would like to seek your opinion on some of these things. One, we are witnessing some sort of clear indication that this parliament, this cabinet is actually domiciled, or rather by politicians rather than technocrats. Actually, it's dominated by those people. Contrary to what we saw in the past, you see, when Uhuru Kenyatta came in, he introduced these technocrats and actually had some sort of minimal political intake. Now, what's your take about these technocrats versus politicians? Whom do you think should be in a better position to serve this country in that kind of
I do
position?
not subscribe to the view that ministers or cabinet secretaries must necessarily be technocrats. I think it's not understood well. Even in America, where we are borrowing from, ministers are politicians. You cannot be a successful minister if you do not understand politics. In fact, if you're not a politician. Because a minister represents the president, plays the politics for the president at that level. So I don't subscribe to that narrow view. When we said let's not pick our ministers from parliament, we didn't say let's pick technocrats as opposed to politicians. That is misunderstood. However, having said that, I must add, you are free to pick politicians, but they had better be serious people, not the sort of people Ruto has given us.
So you think Ruto has not given us...
That's a joke. You know, again, you are free to reward loyalty. Because in politics, loyalty is very important. But is it possible that you can't get competent people who are loyal? They are loyal and they are competent. No. So politicians, no problem. But competent politicians. And they are there. Loyal people, yes, loyal but competent. Again, they are there. So bring us serious people. They can be politicians. They can be loyalists. They can be people, your cronies. In politics, you must reward your cronies. People who have helped you to get to power. If you don't do that, next time you may not get it. Even sustaining yourself in power, people must see they are harvesting from their sweat. It's normal. But look for competent people within the range of all those parameters. Yeah.
Now, Prof, you've been in this country long enough, and you've actually seen the trends of how this country is administered. And I believe you better understand how things used to take place back then. I think the first time that I got to know more of what is taking place in the country was, I think that was 2005, thereabout. That I was still young. But then I remember the members of the cabinet were picked from actually the parliament, something of the sort.
Yeah, it was in parliament.
Yeah, and that actually happened. Now, if you compare during that era, the Kibaki era, and the kind of change that we saw during Uhuru Kenyatta regime, where he actually changed that narrative and began picking technocrats instead of politicians, then would you then compare the kind of progress that we had during the Kibaki's era and Uhuru's era and tell us which is which and what is the way that we should go as Kenyans?
Well, you know, it's not very easy to compare two regimes because they operate under different circumstances. Kibaki operated under the MOU they had with Raila, which he rubbished. Then they followed a period where he needed to bring KANU, which was opposition, and others, because Raila was giving him hell, and his team from LDP. And then there was a coalition government again, under the constraints of a coalition government. So you can't compare that. When Uhuru came, he wanted nothing. Ruto and Uhuru did not want politicians. In fact, Ruto put down his foot and said, in this government, only the president and I will be politicians. But Uhuru disregarded that and brought in Balala, Ngilu, and I think one or two others. And now, we have come full circle. Here we are. Now, Ruto has gone completely and done the opposite of what he said in 2013. Now, his cabinet is almost 100%. Actually, it's 100%, unless I'm wrong. Almost 100% politicians. And that's not even the worst part of it. The worst part of it is what kind of politicians are those?
Then, Prof, what is then the implication of having a heavily political cabinet? I don't want to use the word incompetence as you're putting it, but then what is the implication?
If you have politicians and they are competent, you'll just have to guard against one thing. Politicians are always looking at the next election. So if you make somebody a minister, and that's why we wanted non-politicians. A person serving the people as minister or cabinet secretary, with his eyes on the next election, is likely to be swayed into doing certain things to that end, to the end of becoming an MP next time. You know, winning his seat. So his attention will not be national; it will be so local. If there are projects, he will allocate projects, employment and other goodies and favors with the eye on the next election. That was the danger we were running away from. But politicians per se, there is nothing wrong with politicians. So as a president, once you hire politicians, you must sit them down and tell them it's not about your re-election or your election next year, following coming election. It's about serving the people of Kenya. And I have my ways of knowing. And these are my targets. This is the performance contract I have with you. If you don't deliver, if I sack you after 6 months, don't blame me. Because I will have seen you have remained village, you have remained parochial, and your eyes are on the next election. I'll sack you. That's the only challenge you have. But politicians, world over, they are the ones who make good ministers. They understand the people. They understand the politics. I have no problem with politicians. But don't be the kind of politicians the president has given us. They are better politicians.
Prof, the president actually had a problem with the likes of Honorable Fred Matiang'i engaging in politics back then and saying that you people are supposed to be serving the people, not engaging in politics. Do you see a situation whereby the president can tame Aden Duale, Alice Wahome, Kipchumba Murkomen, and make them actually focus on what they're supposed to be doing? The likes of Moses Kuria, how will you separate that guy from politics? That is what
by 2023, towards the end of 2024, as we go to 2025, all of them will have donned their political attire. All of them will be in the villages campaigning for 2027, for Ruto and for themselves.
And we're yet to see whether the president will be okay with that or
He will love it because they will be campaigning for his re-election.
So some of these things,
And to me, there's nothing wrong with that.
you're making
If a minister is performing his duties, and in the next election is trying to make the president get re-elected, I have no problem with that. Me, I have no problem. What's the problem?
some minister serving everybody in Kenya.
Yes, go and
Taking
campaign for
sides
the
this
president.
time round.
I have no problem because the president is a politician.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Prof, something that has actually came out of this cabinet naming is the fact that a number of people who've been deployed in various ministries or other slots are not actually experienced or rather in those areas. If you look at ICT, Mr. Eliud Owalo was actually appointed to be in charge of that docket. He's got, if you look at his records, sincerely speaking,
He's not an ICT
he's not, in fact, what he has done over time has nothing to do with ICT. The health sector, in fact, some of the health practitioners are saying here that the person heading there is not even a health practitioner. Education sector, of course, is not been in, Machogo has not been there. So what are the possible ramifications of deploying such kind of characters to these ministries?
I have disagreed with people who say a politician cannot be a minister. They have misunderstood the constitution. I am also disagreeing with the people who think only a health practitioner like a doctor can head the Ministry of Health. They are wrong, so wrong. What you need is capacity, not training. You know, let me even go lower than a ministry. Let me go to Kenyatta National Hospital. You don't need to be a doctor to run Nairobi National Hospital, the Kenyatta National Hospital, or Nairobi Hospital. No, you don't need to be a doctor. You don't need to be a medic. You don't need to be a health professional. No, you just need to be an intelligent person. Because what you provide there is leadership. A minister provides leadership. He's not a manager. The minister employs managers. So I do not subscribe to this cheap thinking that one has to be an expert in an area for them to be given a ministry. No, absolutely none. Then what training would one have to be a president? I end the university ngapi ndio akuwe president. You see how cheap it is?
Of course, the presidency is a different
Which
thing.
ministry can't I run myself if you give me? You take me to treasury. There will be no minister who would have done it better than me if I became the minister. But I'm not I'm not an economist. But take me to treasury. What I will do, no minister has ever done or can do. Yeah.
Is there any instance in the
It's
past?
capacity.
Prof, is there any, make me understand this, is there any instance in the past whereby the Ministry of Treasury, that is, has been headed by anybody who's not done economics?
Almost all of them. Almost all of them have never been economists.
How can you aid the Treasury without clear understanding of
In fact,
finance
I'm
and
trying
everything?
to think of one who was an economist. Musalia Mudavadi, was he an economist?
Okay.
Nyachai, was he an economist? I'm trying to think. Adam Magugu, was he I'm trying to remember. Only Mwai Kibaki. So I thought he was a mathematician, not as an economist. I'm trying to think, other than Mwai Kibaki. I'm trying to think because I can remember there was Mwai Kibaki, he was an economist. Saitoti, mathematician. Mudavadi, land economist. Nyachai, none of those things anyway. He was not a graduate. Masakali, I think, was an economist. Okemo, I don't know whether he's an economist. I'm trying to run through my mind the ministers at Treasury. More than 3/4 have not been. You don't need to be an economist to run the Treasury. You need to be an intelligent person who understands the country. Because you are offering leadership. You are not dealing with micro issues. They are not micro economical issues. You are dealing with macro big issues.
So meaning you can
you
work
just need to be
anywhere.
an intelligent
You can
person.
work anywhere as long as you're intelligent.
What is the problem is always that people do not have the capacity. A person doesn't have the capacity to be a headmaster of a primary school, and you make him a vice chancellor of a university because he's a professor. Yet he doesn't have the capacity to be a headmaster of a primary school. The capacity. He's a good professor, can teach well, research well, but the capacity for leadership that can see him successful run a primary school as a head, he doesn't have. So because of the professorship and the degrees and the research and the teaching, you make him vice chancellor. And that's why these universities are all collapsing. Because they don't have leaders. A minister need not be a person trained. If on top of the capacity he has a training in that area, is an added advantage. But it's not necessary.
Okay. Now, Prof, finally, as we wrap up this conversation, something that has actually been shown is that a number of people have been nominated, and I want to pick on two cases. One is the former Meru Senator, Mithika Linturi, and Aisha Juma Londe. These are people with questionable character, that is. And my question is this: nominating with these people to the cabinet, is this not a blow to Article 6 of the Constitution? Or is it being applied?
Kenyans agreed a long time ago to throw Chapter 6 out of the chapter, out of the country, this country. We have agreed we don't want integrity matters. We have agreed impunity is okay with us. By doing so, we are saying as a people, we are satisfied with living in a poor third world country, a dirty, poor country, third world country, where people die from very preventable and treatable diseases, where children cannot access good education. That's what we are saying. There is no country in the world where somebody on murder, murder trial is going on. She's on trial for murder, and you are nominating her for cabinet. It can't work in any other country in the world. A person is on a rape charge. A rape case a rape is going on. With a series of other cases, including frauding bank, fraud, and many other things, and you are nominating for cabinet. It can only be in Kenya. I don't think even the poorest of third world countries can do that. You can't. You can't have people in court over murder, active murder case, and you're nominating them for cabinet.
Prof, these people are saying here, by the way, I heard all these people talk, and they're saying that these allegations are politically motivated.
No, don't talk of political motivation. Somebody's son was shot dead, and you are talking political motivated. Aisha Juma is facing murder charge of a person, a really human being, who was killed and died. I'm not saying she's the one responsible, but that is why she's in court. You are saying political, and somebody's son is dead in the ground there.
And how then are we going to? How then are we?
If the owners of that boy can hear you talk like that, they can be very annoyed with you. But politically motivated, somebody was killed, and that's why she's in court. You cannot nominate a person like that. She could as well be innocent, but she has to be cleared first. Somebody cannot be in court on a certificate on charges of forged certificates of rape, and you give him to the people of Kenya to be their minister. It's contempt to the people of Kenya. These people may as well turn out to be innocent. But while that is going on, they cannot, in any country, anywhere in the world, only Kenya, where a president can offer such a people and tell Kenyans, I want these people to serve you as ministers.
Prof, are you therefore trying to say that the president is violating the Constitution?
Of course.
By applying, nominating these people?
Badly. Badly. Chapter 6, Article 9, is it Article 10? It is badly in violation of the Constitution. It's a contempt to the people of Kenya. The president should have some respect for this country and the people of this country.
Do you then think...
These are good people. Some of them are even my friends. I keep saying. The people you are mentioning, some of them are my very good friends. But if they sat here, I'll tell them, even you yourself, tell the president, thank you. Let me deal with my case first. But we said the trend when the president went to ICC. Somebody was in ICC. Charges against, crimes against humanity. And we made them president and deputy president. So we set up ourselves for failure.
Prof, do you then think that our parliament can be sober enough to
Which
block...
parliament? We have a parliament. This wash parliament. Matiangi told you that 40% are wash. These are not people who can... No parliament can vet these people and pass them. Which parliament? Only Kenyan parliament.
So with all those charges, Aisha Juma and Mithika Linturi will be cabinet secretaries?
There was a woman who couldn't even speak. She was called, I can even mention because it is public. She was Ferris Kandia or somebody. She couldn't even say her name during the vetting. Parliament, the committees gave the report saying, no, this one cannot. She wants to be Minister of East Africa and G what. She doesn't even know what COMESA is. Sure? COMESA, she doesn't know. So the committee said, Kandia apana. You know what people say? Someone said in Parliament. So you are saying she doesn't have passion. Do you have a passionometer? Then somebody else say, no, there are some people who can't speak. But if you give them a job, they can do. So which parliament are you talking? We don't have a parliament. No, they will vet them. They will all be ministers. And I congratulate them in advance for being ministers.
Prof, then I think we should have a very broader conversation on Chapter 6 of the Constitution and its implementation and the possible ways in which you can see this being implemented so that we do not have a rogue kind of cabinet.
Correct.
But as things stand, you say these people are going to go through with or without those things. Well, allow me to wrap up this conversation at that particular moment, but then do not fail to subscribe to our channel here, and of course, do not fail to tune to our subsequent episodes of the Candid Talk. And of course, Richard Mwenje is coming next with the Business Glide and Siasa Brigade. And of course, yours truly, Jadel Kabiro with Jadel Kabiro Live, and our very own Simon Irungu with the big question, and of course Rakim or Kimutai Kennedy coming up with the public opinion. Let me thank everybody who's been behind this production. Of course, Bilal is the super producer here. Thank you so much. Until next time, have yourself a very lovely day.